Hello and welcome, my design guys and gals, and welcome to the Level Design Lobby. Today's episode of the Level Design Lobby is brought to you by GamerBorn. GamerBorn is a fantastic merchandise store which has a range of different gaming related items, from clothing to mugs, and it comes for all ages as well. So if you're trying to get your children into gaming and making them look like that little gamer you want them to, go check out GamerBorn. They also have different esport teams merchandise as well. And like I said, they're very kind enough to sponsor the Level Design Lobby. So it is also getting closer to Christmas, and you know any gamers or want to buy yourself some merchandise, the best Christmas gifts are self-bought. So alone. But yes, if you want to go buy their merchandise, do so on the website gamerborn.co.uk and use the coupon code LevelDesignLobby for 10% off your purchases. All of this information will be down below in the description as well. So don't forget, use the coupon code LevelDesignLobby. Alright guys, let's get back to the show. You are joining me, your host, with not the most, Max Pears. I feel I need to get better at that. You're joining me for the 7th episode of Level Design Lobby, and if you're wondering why I said that earlier, it's because I have a very special guest for you, my friend, my co-worker, Yasen. Say hello, Yasen.
Hey Max, hello. Thanks for inviting me here.
Yeah, no worries, man. So the people, they now know I'm not crazy. They now know you're here. So Yasen is one of my good friends and also one of my colleagues. We work together on The Division, and you've worked at Ubisoft for about 5 years, isn't it?
Yeah, just short of 5 years.
Yeah, many Assassin's Creeds to his name, and we're currently working at the same place together now. So we got a lot of design history and stuff together. We talk a lot about design.
Yeah, we do share a lot in common on a daily basis.
Yeah, we do, man. So what we're going to be talking about for you people is a few of like our design principles and our ideas about the design process. And this is why I'm super happy to have Yasen here. He's got more experience than me. We've worked together before, and we're still working together now. And yeah, no, I think it's cool to not only for you guys to not listen to just my smooth jazz voice, but also to have other people, and Yasen being one of the star of today's show.
Yeah, I look forward to adding some color to this to this radio talk with some Eastern European English accent.
Yeah, well, that's how you win over the ladies with that one. But no, man, it's good to have you here, and we're gonna, bad jokes of ours aside, we're gonna jump into it, really, man. What we're going to be talking about today, as I said, was the design principles and that. So the first one for us, now that we've got the introductions out of the way, is planning and paper design. This is normally what you will do as the first stage of design. But we've both worked at multiple studios now and seen that sometimes some studios, just down to production time, don't either spend enough time in here or spend too much time there. And it is a very tough balance to find it, as we're going to be going into further detail. But the planning stage really is for you all to bring up questions and hopefully answer questions about the game, the mechanics, the layouts, the flow, the story, and all this, and go in there. But Yasen, mate, what are your thoughts on paper and planning design?
Well, just as you said, you can experience it in different ways, like depending on the project. Sometimes it's too short, sometimes it drags along. But then again, just as everything, it's all about finding the right balance.
Yeah.
And we'll be focusing more on the level design side of this, because we're more experienced in level design specifically.
Yeah.
And yeah, for me, I used to hate doing documentation, like presentation, either if it's for a whole area, a level, or a single smaller location. I used to think of it, this is the boring stuff that my lead requires me to do before I get to the fun stuff, which is working in the engine. But truth is, the more and more experience I got, the more and more I found that documentation and gathering references, throwing out some basic high-level design intentions, and doing 2D map and sketches is super useful, not only for your leads and other departments to track your work early in the project, but for you to actually get ideas, iterate, and basically have a really good start, because it's scary to look at that flat ground or white sheet, as we know sometimes.
Yeah, man, I think that's a great point as well. Like the first thing you said about, you think it's a boring part, and like you said, sometimes it can be, but I agree with you. Like as you get more experience, I remember when I was coming in as a junior, I was like, oh man, like so much Excel. Why am I doing this? Like no one advertises that to you as well. Like it's not till you're actually in the industry. You're like, oh, there's stuff that comes before making the level in the game. But I think that's a really valid point. Is like this is a necessary thing, and like you shouldn't see it as being that, oh man, I got to do this to impress leads, directors. Is like this phase is for you. It's to help you get a better understanding, and then go into your second point about nothing scarier than a blank page or just an empty environment. Is like this point in development is for you to have a starting ground and like a foundation for yourself to build upon. I think that's super important.
Absolutely agree with you. It's a vital part. And then again, I've learned to realize that it's not even actually that boring unless it drags along, which takes us to the other thing you mentioned earlier. And again, it's about finding that balance.
Yeah, man.
So, long story short, with the whole design process, like depending on your and the project's needs, you can include the 2D maps and the references, design intentions, all the things we mentioned already. It's all about finding the balance, just as you mentioned before. It's really cheap to think on paper and to design on paper and iterate, so you can get a lot of things figured out there in a much shorter span of time than you would in 3D. On the other end, you cannot basically design everything on paper. Even as a part of the design process, still in pre-production, still pure design and prototyping, actually jumping in the engine after every few iterations, it's super important, because until you see things in 3D, it's never going to happen. You're never going to have that finished 2D sketch perfect.
Yeah, I think you bang on again, mate. Is like these are here to help like answer questions, but also to raise questions. Like these are not going to be something that you translate across. This is again just it's a learning period for you, for your team, for the company, and for the project itself. And that's the important bit. And moving on to testing and prototyping, like that's important. Like when you bring across the paper design, it's not about bringing across this perfect paper design and then making it. Because as you just said, it's not always going to translate well. Like it's just not, and that's not a problem. You shouldn't be afraid of that or feel sad about it. It's just how level design, how game development works. So don't be afraid to make changes because of that. And I think that's the thing, is don't be afraid to fail. Like when you were saying about paper design is cheap, and thought was it cheap or quicker?
Cheap and quicker, same thing basically in our case.
I'm butchering what Yasen is saying, but yeah, like it's that sort of thing. It's another mantra is like fail faster, because that's how you get the best stuff. It's okay to fail. No one's expecting you to get it right the first time. Unless you're a design genius or like super lucky, that's never going to happen. Maybe once in your entire career as a game dev, but yeah, like don't be afraid to make those changes, and that's what I think testing and prototyping is for.
Yeah, absolutely. Just as you said, we mostly spoke up until now about the design, but we won't go in too much detail about prototyping, because we all know, like, once we have that 2D map, like how to start translating it in 3D. But long story short, there it's just about a lot will change. It's all about answering and asking those questions, just as you said, because you will see a lot of problems, you have a lot of doubts while you're making the 2D map. But it's perfectly okay to say, okay, I have no idea how this is going to turn out. Let's check how it looks in 3D, how it feels, how it flows. And then it could be a snowball effect of changes, or actually sometimes, in those rare cases, you can nail down some of the things straight away.
Definitely. And like before we fully move on to the next point we want to talk about, I want to mention something that you said to me before we started recording, was when it comes to this planning stage, it's easy to get caught up into it. And you said how, I thought it was a really great point, because I'm going to steal Yasen's thunder right now, as I always do, is the fact that you can sometimes just keep making changes, but that doesn't mean they're the best changes, as you said. Like, it's making changes because it's just a change. So that's another important point in planning and pre-production, is know when to step away. And that does take time, and it takes experience to know when to step away. And, you know, I don't know about you, but I still make that mistake occasionally here and there, you know. But yeah, I thought... Sorry, my voice is sounding weird there. Giving you my radio voice. But no, I think that was a very valid point about, you know, knowing when to step away. So, but now that we've talked about paper and planning design, we're going to move on to, and we just dabbled in it then, is the testing and prototyping phase. So now that we're done with the 2D, what do you like to do after you finish the planning then, mate?
Well, the short version would be basically start translating that layout in the engine, but as we all know, this isn't that easy. I mean, we can go in details about, like, are you doing this out of simple square blocks and doing everything custom? Do you actually create small, if you're making a bigger location, and especially in a bigger game? So yeah, jumping into 3D and prototyping, it's again about bringing that 2D sketch you have and the intentions you eventually had in that document in 3D. And don't be afraid, it's not going to end how you had it on 2D. This is just your starting point.
Exactly.
You need to start with something, and you will see that you would be very lucky if you keep a bigger percentage of your work. And again, that's perfectly fine, just as Max said a couple of times. That's super important. Probably it comes with experience, but then again, don't be afraid to fail. There is no such thing as failure.
Exactly.
Everything that doesn't work, even if you completely throw away like what you prototyped and what you sketched, if you throw it away when you start doing it in 3D, that's perfectly normal, because you realized you did a lot of mistakes, and that's a good thing. And when doing that prototype, don't really focus on detail. Again, probably these are things that some of you, the more experienced ones, already know, but start adding layer by layer. Don't do this semi-vertical slice approach. And vertical slice is probably not the most accurate terminology in this case. I would say just limit the details. Start with the big shapes, with the silhouette. See if your location looks good in those regards, and later start adding detail by detail. Just rooms connected with doors and corridors if it's like interior design. If it's bigger, like exterior design, start modifying your terrain. Check the distances, because actually some of the things that's really difficult to nail down on 2D and even in 3D in the beginning is scale. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, basically everything will be based on some quest design or intentions you have, and feel free to destroy everything over and over again until you nail that scale down, and don't go in the trap of making everything big. I always do that.
Oh god, yeah. I think that's always that urge. It's like that teenage kid like inside of you, where you instantly think, oh, bigger is better. You know, like you've got the scale of like giant robots fighting giant monsters. But no, Yasen is bang on. Like, you know, don't, like, it's cool to start big, but don't overdo it, because it's just gonna bite you in the arse at some point, you know, like, unless the location or mission is extremely big. Another thing I want to talk about with prototyping though is it's great for getting your ideas across, you know, like an Excel sheet, a 2D map in the planning stage can only show so much, and normally when you show it to someone, they don't fully get your vision, you know. So having a prototype where they can jump in, you can hand them a controller. Yes, it's a prototype. Art's missing. There may be some other stuff that's not there, but having something they can play often leaves like a bigger impression on someone to help you get a feature, a level, a mission like greenlit. And I think that's something is. There's a great line I heard from a friend of ours, Simon Cooper, which was, or as we call him, Scoop, was show me, don't tell me. Like, and I think that's a great one. Like, because we're a game, we're an interactive medium, and I think that's a big thing. And that should be something you prioritize with your prototype and testing phase, is allowing people to play. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it just, the interactivity translates, and the visualization part of it, even in our daily work. So it would help not only you, it would not only be appreciated by directors who are not always designers, so they can't imagine that 2D map in 3D. So the sooner you have something to show them, the better. Just as you said, just give me the controller.
Exactly. No, I agree, man. Agreed.
Yeah, and speaking about the changes that might occur from that 2D map to the 3D one, of course they can be of various ways, but until you see the 3D geometry and you start leading the player using the geometry and the environment, and I don't even mean by color or lighting, which come much later, even by simple shapes, they will lead to a lot of changes. Your layout might flip. You on your layout, let's say you had your door on the left and it was for some reasons when you start doing it in 3D you might put something in the middle of the room which was unnecessary detail on a 2D map, but now you put it in 3D and that actually starts leading your eye in the other direction, so you decide to flip anything. And this is just a super simple example, but again the takeaway is that a lot will change, and feel free to jump as soon as you think you have something decent from the 2D map into 3D.
No, I think that's bang on, man. So we've now discussed about the pre-production and paper design. So we're going to start moving on to another super important point that we you're hearing us do it right now, but like we experience every day, and it's I remember hearing people tell me how important this point was when I was coming into the industry, but you don't realize how important it is until after a couple of years, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, and that's communication. Like, remember this guys and girls, is like, you are what was that saying about the glue or something? What was the saying you said earlier, just offline?
Yeah, it's basically again one of the first things that was told to me when I started in the industry years ago, and it was level design or mission design. Basically, level design is the glue between all departments in a game dev team.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, that's really something for you to remember, because you work with basically everyone. You work with concept, environment artists, well, basically every art department, even with effects and that. You then have your quest or mission designer. You might be it depending on the studio that you're at. You also have animation, because you might need specific animations done and what have you. And trust me, they're all going to be coming to you or expecting you to go visit them, which again is fine. And also, this is another thing. You are probably going to be the last person to touch, one of the last people to touch the game or your segment of the game, because you bring everything in together. When someone from audio makes a cool sound, 9 times out of 10 it's probably you implementing it. When animation have something, it's you knowing when to put it into that level. So really, man, like, take the time to talk to your team,
Yeah, I absolutely agree on that one. Communication, even though it's starting to sound like a cliche in our industry and in every industry nowadays, but it's really important. And even like knowing your team, just to know everyone's strengths and not so strong sides, it's super important. But going to the day-to-day work, and actually even going back a bit to our first topic, like, communication is key, like both in design, prototype, and later in the production phases. Because in the end, you're not making a level, a fun one, where you want to show off, like, have grand vistas, super well-flowing navigation. I mean, yeah, you would do these things in a test if you're applying for work somewhere, but in the end, you're making a part of a much bigger thing, and your level would be used by art to make it pretty. Your level would be accompanied by a mission or a quest, and whatever other department you can think of, you have work with them. And we all know that we do need to approach them and speak with them, but we tend to forget it. Sometimes we just sit down, start working in a vacuum, and wait until we have something ready to bring out. And we still fall in that trap, actually. Even
we're all guilty.
Yeah, we have experience now, and we still tend to do it every now and then. But again, to cut it short, just on a daily basis, even a couple of times a day, make sure the other departments that would be involved in that level you're making are constantly giving you their input. Take it with a grain of salt. Realize what everyone can and cannot do, basically what he's strong at, but you can get experience and opinions from everywhere, basically.
Definitely. I think, like, building on what you just said, is like, we tend to want to wait till something's finished and then show it. Don't do that, because, like, you could spend time being like, oh, I'm going to wait till it's finished, then I'm going to wow everyone, and then you're completely off the beaten path for what art or mission or audio wanted or were expecting, and that can be a real, like, again, another snowball effect on taking up time, because now you have to redo everything. So yeah, approach people like during your design phase, like really communicate with them about what you're doing, because that's super important. And also, people want to be felt like their opinions are heard. And I can't remember who said this, but it was a great line of like, it just goes back to that old adage of two heads are better than one, you know, and like, it's better to have all these people because they might come up with an idea that you might not have thought of beforehand and make your area better. So I think that to me is like a super important thing, is show in development. Like, they know it's in development, you know, that we were all working in this industry and we all know things change. So don't be afraid to show them, because they might have great ideas and be able to help you design something even better, you know? So
absolutely. Sometimes actually one of the best advices I had were even from people that have the least in common with my department as they can, because let's say as a level designer, you
was the sandwich guy who gave you the great idea for Assassin's Creed, wasn't it?
He was an asshole. Actually, I never took his advice to heart. I mean,
never bought a sandwich from him again, did you?
Yeah, really. Sometimes, I mean, we're used to taking a lot of feedback from and seeking feedback from environment artists, of course, leads and directors, from quest designers. But actually, many times when you actually have something already built that can be tested to some extent, maybe this is for later production. Actually, sometimes if you call upon a writer or a programmer or even an HR, if of course she or he is a gamer, you can get really interesting advices. And if you watch carefully how they play, because your audience, I know we know it, but they're much different than us as gamers in most cases. So yeah, feel free to take advices from everyone, because the good ones can come from a variety of ways. But when it comes down to the communication, before you actually get to the testing, like pure feedback phase, again, while you're designing something, if you don't communicate that enough, especially with quest and environment teams, it can long term bite you in the ass. It can be expensive, not only for the company. Let's say you don't care for that because production allows it.
You're not a team player, but
it will hurt you, because we learn not to be attached to our work. But when you iterate and redo an area like a dozen times over, and especially when you go in more detail before getting that much needed feedback from other departments and end up redoing it again completely, well, you overburn at some point and you stop caring, which is not good. So it would pay off just for your own good to get that feedback, even if you don't feel like it.
No, I agree, man. And I think that's a very important one, is like just do it, because it saves so much time and you can learn so much. But another side point from communication I want to bring up here is how to communicate with different people. Like I said, we've worked on past projects before and other projects. Is like,
but we're still assholes. So
that was never up for debate, mate. But it's more on like each department has different ways to communicate. You know, like certain places like art, for example, prefer mood boards, story like detailed descriptions of things. You know, like, and that's an important thing to understand. Yes, it can be a pain in terms of, well, I just wrote bullet points, but people still are not happy. But it's important for you to know this, because it's all about getting everyone on the same wavelength. So understanding who you're talking to, whether it be directors, leads, juniors, people from different departments, even marketing, they're very different. Like when you're talking to them, these are all important things. So understand who you're talking to as well. I think that's an important one when it comes to communication, you know.
Yeah, that's a really vital one. We are still learning on this, because it's important. You have to sell your work in the end of the day. And if you're selling it to a director who's never been a designer before, obviously you have to have more pictures. You have to speak more high level in terms of intentions. And in a perfect world, you would have something in-engine to show. If you're speaking to your lead who has more experience than you and has been doing what you're currently doing over and over again, probably with him you can get more like faster, straight to the point. You can he can actually read your designs and know what to expect from them. So he will asking you questions about like design intentions and stuff like that. But again, not to go off topic, it really boils down to have different approaches to different departments and people. It will help a lot. Yeah, definitely.
So that's us going to be wrapping up on communication. But this part I'm really excited for, not just you as the audience, but like I'm really excited for, is we're going to be talking about traversal and variety. Now, as I said, Yasen's worked on many Assassin's Creed, where we all know like free running and parkour is, you know, super important to your franchises, to that franchise. And again, Yasen's not going to give away any Ubisoft secrets because we don't want him getting sued and then me getting sued. More importantly, me getting sued. We don't care about Yasen, we care about me and my bank account. But no, I think it's going to be really cool because Yasen's now going to be breaking down variety in traversal. And yeah, I'm excited to hear about this because you have more experience in traversal gameplay than I do. So I'm excited. So please, sir, take it away.
Well, thank you, Max. In the end, it's just, I would always say, different experience. But yeah, just as Max said, like in Assassin's Creed games, it's pretty level design driven games, and it's all about exploration. Like there, the world is the hero, as actually Ubisoft likes to say. So building different worlds with different challenges and constantly keeping players engaged just by jumping and running, even without combat, even without like puzzles and so on, it's super important. So yeah, to achieve variety, you actually sometimes have much more tools than you initially think you have, because for variety you usually start thinking about the pacing and the activities you can have, and that's like you expect stuff from gameplay, you expect stuff from mission design and so on, and you think, okay, to achieve variety I need a combat here, I need a cinematic there. But actually as a level designer you have a pretty good tool bag depending on the project. So yeah, you can manipulate, you can achieve a lot in variety through only environment and geometry, to be honest, and that's all level designers a level designer's job. So let's take an example that you don't have anything from quest design coming, and they just say, we need you to get you from A to B, and that should be like 5-minute sequence. And of course, depending if you're designing a location out in the wilds, like rivers, mountains, or interiors, like you can do a lot with just the tools you have. So
is that a intimidating thing, you know, because I mean, at the end of the day, all games are going A to B, but like it's how you dress it, which is, you know, what you're saying. Like, do you get intimidated by this, or do you feel like, you know, after working on so many Assassin's Creeds, you have, you know, like an understanding of how to make each A to B different and exciting?
Well, it was intimidating. It still is, depending again on the case, but it's becoming more and more easier because you learn how to use those tools. I repeated a few times like the same things over and over, but getting down to some examples, let's say you're making interiors. So even when you start from the very basic things, which actually translates into flow, but it's again a tool for achieving variety as well, is you can start with big room, transition to small rooms, transition to a big room again, then you have like small narrow corridors, then you go to big rooms again, maybe you go up and down. It's about even the simple behaviors you have, even without shooting or like interacting with anything besides a door and a lever or something like that. It's all about how you manage that flow. Again, not just the geometry of the room, it's even the animations that the character is performing. If you need 1 minute of platforming, at the beginning you think, okay, it's just platforming, but then again it's all about that tempo. If you have like 2 regular jumps, then make a third one which would actually be harder one, that actually the character will drop down and basically have to climb up. So this is something that can seem as a pace breaker, but it actually brings variety. The character will perform different animations, and that's actually cool. Animations, but it's up to you as a level designer to control it. If you're walking down past like boring alleyways until you get from one location to another, introduce a couple of stairs, introduce a couple of terms, make the character crawl underneath I don't know, a table or whatever object you have, make him slide, make him do monkey bars if we're speaking about parkour. I know it's easier because I'm giving my examples basically from a game which is pretty rich in terms of behavior. But if you think about it, with the tools you have in geometry, the sizes of rooms, even the verticality, like if you're climbing up or going down, if you're sliding, or if it's just purely adding fake depth to your rooms and level. And by fake depth, I mean a window, you can never actually go besides it. But again, these are all things that are variety, and it's not even art. Of course, you have to communicate this well with art, but you can achieve a lot. And suddenly this 5 or 10 minute even boring traversal for which you had no clue in the beginning, because these quest designers did not give you more detail, which you usually end up thinking at the beginning when you get handled that document. You can come up with yourself, and it's expected from you to come up with this, and you should just, if you're not comfortable, like what can you actually do, just get a piece of paper and write down all the things you have in terms of behavior, animations, room geometry, break it down in different categories, make lists in each category, and start mixing those up. Of course, it has not to be completely random until you start nailing down how it works best. You will iterate and iterate, but we all know the drill. That's how you do it.
That's games. But no, I think that's really interesting. It's like your first point then is geometry / architecture in terms of the size of rooms can make the player feel differently. I think that's really cool. Another one you touched on is the path shouldn't always just be straight. Like you're saying, you can go up, down, turn left or right. That can break stuff, which I think is fucking awesome. And then this is one I didn't realize is like the animation. I think that's, again, I think you're right. Like when I'm watching, for example, because it translates to say Batman or Shadow of Mordor with combat, you're pressing the same button, but when you execute like a combo move or a counter, the animation looks badass, so you feel badass. I never thought about that in terms of traversal, so that's a really interesting one there, you know. So no, I like that one. Any other points that you've got there on traversal, or do you want to keep them secret? You know, I mean, don't reveal all.
I'll keep most secret, just to try to hide it. Actually, I don't have more to say, but
yeah, it's a good way of hiding it.
No, but basically we can go on and on in details, but I think some of the examples I gave you will basically kick off your hopefully a new way of how you approach this. But know this, that through geometry and basically character behavior, you can achieve a lot. Just use those tools.
Yeah, man. No, I think that's awesome, and I definitely learned a lot from you doing that. So no, man, like thank you for sharing that, and I hope the listeners do as well. Although the one listener, I don't know how many listeners we have at this point, but Fred, I'm sure you enjoyed that one. You know, I think we're going to wrap things up here because I don't want to give too much away because we're going to bring Yasen in for future episodes. So I think this is it, and I hope you all have enjoyed it. Yasen, is there anything you want to share, how people can reach you or anything like that?
Yeah, so if anyone feels like reaching out for whatever reason, just saying that, hey man, that all the things you said today, like we all know it, what the fuck, what high level bullshit is this?
We all know how the internet works.
Or actually asking me to elaborate more because I got your attention with something but it wasn't detailed enough, or whatever you want to chat about, like level design was, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. We'll provide a link, I guess.
Yeah, do you want to say your full name for people so they can search on LinkedIn as well for you? Yeah,
you can check me on LinkedIn, Yasen Stoinev. I won't spell that one. I'll let you have a little fun figuring out how it's
That's the puzzle.
Spelled.
The puzzle to unlock Yasen as a LinkedIn friend.
Yeah, you're the players. We're trying to make an interactive talk show. So.
Well, I think that's a valid point there. Yeah. But yeah, guys and gals, I hope you really have enjoyed this one. This one, for me, I've enjoyed. I hope you've enjoyed being here, Yasen. You know.
It was super fun, even in your company. So.
Oh, okay. Stop it. You're making me blush. Another thing before we close is Yasen's t-shirt. You can't see it, but it's awesome. It's of Woolly Yoshi, and it is, it's beautiful. It's a good t-shirt. Distracts you from your face. No, guys, like I said, I hope you have enjoyed, and to show your support, please subscribe to the show so that we know that we're doing things right and that you're learning from this. Again, Yasen will be joining me for future episodes, and it's been brilliant again for having you, mate, and thank you guys for listening.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation, Max, again, and bye, guys.
See you later, guys. Take care.